This week, Israel's Prime Minister concluded a historic state visit to the United Arab Emirates, the first of any Israeli leader to the Emirates, something that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. Canada has often welcomed and praised the warming relations between Israel and key Arab nations, but will it bring more peace to the region? And what about the diplomatic stalemate in the peace process between Israelis and Palestinians? Now, after 2 years without one, Israel has an ambassador in Canada again. Ronen Hoffman is a former member of the Knesset and an academic on Middle East politics. He's in Ottawa. Ambassador, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's very, very nice to be here with you this evening.
Well, welcome to Canada. If we can begin with the latest news on Israel's relationship with Arab nations and the visit by your Prime Minister to the UAE, how do you think that plays into the larger aim to build a relationship with the Palestinians? Safe to say many Palestinians weren't thrilled by the visit.
Well, first of all, the peace accords and the normalization that we have with the UAE and Bahrain and Morocco are actually following previous agreements that we have for many years with two other neighbors, Jordan and Egypt. So we develop constantly a relationship and peace accords with our neighbors. And of course, we are looking for, searching for stability in the region. And by developing those agreements and those relationships with our neighbors, eventually we hope and we believe that we'll have a comprehensive normalization in the region between us and our neighbors, including the Palestinians at some point. So I would say that each agreement that we reach, each development, positive development that we have with an Arab state, an Arab player in the region, would help for future comprehensive arrangement in the region.
What do you say to Palestinians who are upset about that visit, though?
Well, I have to say that there's no reason to be upset about it. Each positive development should be encouraged and should be treated positively. And as I said, I believe that at some point when conditions would exist for diplomatic progress between us and the Palestinians as well, it will happen and the Palestinians will be able to join and we'll reach some kind of arrangement with them as well.
Stalled for the moment, as we know. Former U.S. President Trump, who played a role in the normalization of relations with the countries that you just mentioned, is now quoted, as you must know, as saying Bibi Netanyahu was more of an impediment to the Palestinian peace process than the Palestinians were, that Netanyahu didn't want peace. What do you say to those comments from Donald Trump?
First of all, I say that there is a new government in Israel. And the new government in Israel comes with a new agenda and with new policy. And although, unfortunately, conditions don't exist at the moment for diplomatic progress with the Palestinians, we now, the government, which I'm representing now, is being really proactive in terms of improving the lives of the Palestinians in Gaza. My minister, Foreign Minister Yair Lapid, just laid out a comprehensive plan for economy, for security, based on a few principles of humanitarian rehabilitation of Gaza in exchange for long-term quiet if Hamas will actually accept the principles of the quartet. And so previous governments are previous governments. Now there's a new government in Israel, and there's a hope for a better future for us and the Palestinians. And we are not reactive on this issue. We are quite proactive. And we are pushing to develop new channels and new routes for improving our relationship.
But would you agree with Donald Trump that Bibi Netanyahu was an impediment to peace?
Well, I don't actually feel that I need to argue with Donald Trump, the former president of the United States. I just don't think that the blame game is useful or helpful. There's no point of blaming a person or individual, even if it was the prime minister or a leader of another country. It's not the point. The point is how now and for the future we are taking it from here, being again proactive encouraging the political leadership on the Palestinian side to come and talk to us. And then, I rather look at the present and the future rather than the past and try to find who is blamed for who's blamed for what.
Canada has previously praised the warming of relations between Israel and certain Arab nations. You have already started your meetings, as I understand it, with Canadian MPs this week. What are you looking for from Canada on this?
Well, first of all, Canada is a very close friend of Israel, and there's so many common things between Israel and Canada. We are grateful for Canada's support in the international organizations, the international arena in general. We would expect to maintain and to strengthen this friendship and relationship. And any support and help from friends in the international arena that could contribute and help in our dialogues in the region, and maybe at a later stage of investments in the region, would be very, very good.
As you well know, this year was marked by tensions, as ever in the Middle East. There was open conflict between Hamas and Gaza and the Israeli military in May. You've met already with Canada's Special Envoy on Anti-Semitism, Erwin Kotler. He's been on this program many times, and he has told us that conflict in May was a contributor to the rise of anti-Semitism globally and here in Canada. Do you agree with that? What do you think about that?
Well, I'll tell you something. Conflicts, political conflicts, may be used by anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic organizations as trigger. But the source or the core of anti-Semitism is not in political conflicts altogether. It's based on something completely different, on the anti-Semitism is something much deeper than criticism. It's a spreading of lies and hate based on racism. We can look at some kind of conflicts and here and there just trigger to new wave of another anti-Semitism in the world or here in Canada as well. But I don't think that the conflict in May was a game changer. And not necessarily a tipping point. It was just a trigger for another wave of Semitism, which unfortunately exists. And we need to coordinate, to work together with our friends in order to combat it. And again, we are very grateful for Canada's support in this respect, including appointing Professor Kotler to Special Envoy to the combat against anti-Semitism.
Jewish Canadians, as you may well know, are the most targeted group in this country for hate crimes. Will addressing anti-Semitism in Canada be a priority for you as you take on this post? And if so, how would you take that on?
Well, absolutely. I think this is one of the challenges. It's not only a threat to Israel and to the Jewish communities here in Canada, but also it's a threat and a challenge for democracies throughout the world, minorities, ethnic groups. And therefore, I think that the way to go, and obviously it's going to be high on the priority of what I'm going to do here, is to cooperate and to get organizations, groups, countries, democracies to fight together against anti-Semitism. I think it's a good thing that now there is a very clear definition of anti-Semitism that Canada was accepting as well, and it helps us to define it, to monitor it, and to combat it in an integrity. We need to cooperate. We need a concert kind of effort, and so that's I'm going to put it again high on the agenda of my activities and my position here as an ambassador. And
just to go back to the Middle East quickly, there has been an increase again, as you would well know, in attacks by settlers on Palestinians. I think the number I saw is that it was up 50% this year over last year. Your Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister, not the last government, has called this insignificant. Why is that?
Well, look, we are, the state of Israel is against violence of any kind. And again, to blame one side for violence, I don't think it's right.
But these attacks are up 50% over the year before, and it seems to have been
right.
cast aside.
Look, yes, Israel is a law-abiding democracy. We have police, we have courts, we follow the rules, and we are committed to rule of law. So if there are attacks and there is violence, then in a very, very coherent and very significant way, as democracies do, we deal with it. We deal with it by abiding in law, and so that's how we work. It's we are very, very committed to the rule of law, and therefore attacks, any kind of attacks, would be dealt with by the police, by law.
Ambassador, history has shown these are all complicated matters. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.